be able to take us through the next session.
Thank you, Nelson and President Ritesh, all the other presidents in the House, our Assistant Governor Gogi. Even as I start, I'd request that panelist Manu is still having a small challenge. If we can try and sort that as we start with the other panelists. I think he's not quite connected. Yes, but this is a good time to be on board. We have 4 panelists, and I'll let you know who these panelists are. Big omission. We do have DGN Azeb in the house. Welcome. We are so happy to have you on board. Karibu sana. Good. Okay. So this session, we'll have 4 panelists, and we'll try and keep it short and sweet. We'll go through, each of the panelists will tell us a little about themselves. At the end of that, we'll have a Q&A session. So I'd encourage each and every one of you to use the chat room. So if you have any question, please type it in, and Nelson will pick on those later. After we have finished the Q&A, since we are here to share our experiences and hopefully share a few lessons, we'll have a rejoinder from one of us, Rotaract Ruth. She's the president-elect of Rotaract Club of Nairobi Central, and proud to say that she is in a mentoring group that I sit in. So that's really a pride for me. We are talking about success to significance. Now, if you ask what success is, it's relative. If you ask a fresh graduate, what is success? They may say the payslip, a promotion, a title, ability to drive their dream car, all that is success. If you ask somebody who's more experienced, they will tell you that comfort, being able to contribute in their community, and just being at peace and happy at their work. If you ask a toddler, they may define in their own words that success is making the first few steps or the first few words, you know, the da, da, da. That may be what success is. So we have a wonderful team, 4 panelists who will help us unpack what success is to them and what significance is. So I'll not talk about significance, we'll go along that. Now, our first panelist is somebody who has been in this space for quite some time in terms of leadership. He was in top leadership in the corporate world. He's the founder of DEPO, which is the Dan Eldon Place of Tomorrow, a management consultancy focusing on leadership, strategy, culture transformation, performance management, and coaching. He's a much sought after speaker and has actually written a book which is published, Kenyans, Yes We Can, in addition to being, to writing in the business daily. He's had various directorships. And Mike Eldon, I'd like to flip this a little. I don't want you to tell us about how you started. You have a very interesting angle. You reinvented yourself. Was it at age 60, just about, or after? How did you reinvent yourself, and what lessons can you offer? Thank you, Mike.
Here comes Manu back. Thank you, Sally. And yes, it's true. I did, and it was at 60. And you know, in this day and age of COVID, we talk about necessity being the mother of invention, like us being online now. When I turned 60, necessity became the mother of invention, because in the organization that I was, people retired at 60. Looking back on it now, 15 years later, it seems a ridiculously arbitrary number, but that's what happened. And I didn't have a master plan, but what emerged was that the depot, this consultancy, which by the way started off as a project of our Rotary Club of Nairobi in 1994, as outdoor experiential learning for young people, we developed it into this management consultancy, which has been my life since then. And there's this wonderful book by Charles Handy called The Second Curve. And I'm the perfect example of that second curve. I had my first curve as an executive in the IT industry. And now I've got this second curve as a management consultant, director, etc., this portfolio life, this diversified life, where each element in the portfolio feeds into the other elements. And I must say, I've never been so fulfilled in my life. I'm so happy to be out of the IT industry, which is such a rough industry from the point of view of how you do, how you compete. Going way back from when I first joined it in the 1960s, and of course, equally so now. So I'm in my second curve.
And maybe then I can go back to your first curve, and maybe you can tell us, what is success to you and how do you measure? What are the indicators? What are the things that made you or can make you say, I was or I am successful?
I think when I first thought about this, when the theme was given to us, I thought about our circle of influence. And how broad is our circle of influence? And how positive is the influence that we spread? Who are we influencing and how? And whether in my career or in Rotary or in other areas, as I looked back these last few days, stimulated, provoked by the theme, I had some good memories brought back to me. But I think that, let me just pick one from when I arrived here in Kenya in 1977. I became an ICT pioneer. I called myself an urban pioneer. The white settlers were rural pioneers with farming and whatever. I was a computer pioneer here. We hadn't invented the term IT yet, but I started promoting, and I'd like to think I had a reasonable circle of influence in helping people accept that using computers was a good idea, even at a time when too many people thought, oh, it was just labor saving and putting people out of work, rather than helping productivity, national competitiveness, and so forth. The other example I'll give of a circle of influence comes from Rotary, and it's from when I was chairman of our club, as we used to call ourselves, not president. And my main objective that I identified for myself was reigniting our Rotaract Club, which I did with two of my staff in my IT company. And so the influence, the significance of seeing all these Rotaractors since 1986 expanding their circle of influence has given me an immense amount of pleasure. And there are many other examples I could give, like when I became a founder director and then vice chairman of KEPSA. So this influence in promoting the enabling environment for the private sector through advocacy with government. It's interesting that one of my fellow panelists here, other than my neighbor to my right here, is Manu Chandaria, who is the founder chairman of KEPSA. I don't know if he'll be talking about that, but KEPSA, when it was founded in 2003, I think we had no idea that it would become anywhere near as influential as it now is. So here are just a few examples about our circles of influence.
Thank you, Mike. And even as I move to the next panelist, people may think that life is just about success. Maybe you can tell us, what are some of the challenges you faced as you are walking this journey? And what are the lessons you'd tell your younger self
I think the biggest challenge is when we, in our IT vendoring company, sold computer systems, large complex computer systems, to government clients who actually didn't want the systems to work because they would introduce the transparency and accountability to which they were allergic. They wanted to buy the system, they didn't want it to work properly, and then they wanted to blame us for the failure, to displace blame on us. And it is through such experiences that I invented Eldon's law, which states that the more incompetent the user, the more they blame the supplier. I've never seen an exception to Eldon's law. And that actually took me to being grilled by the Public Accounts Committee, then chaired by Wamalwa. And it was a very rough experience. But I guess the lesson is that crises don't last forever. They can be dreadful. They can last for years, which this one did, with adverse media coverage, which reputational risk. But you've got to keep going because you inside know what you did and what you didn't. And I made sure that, for instance, in networks in which I circulated, not least Rotary, I talked about the experience so people had the real story, not that one put about by politicians with ulterior motives and the media to whom they went, who indulged in brown envelope journalism.
Thank you, Mike. It's a good thing you are Rotarian, and I'd like to believe that the four-way test had a role there. I'd like at this stage to invite our next panelist. We'll be coming back for a final round, but participants, members, Rotarians, if you have any questions for Mike, please put them in the chat and we'll address them all once the panelists have spoken. Now, our next speaker is synonymous with philanthropy, with his name visibly associated in the fields of health, education, homes, and various other causes. He is known as Kenya's most successful entrepreneur. Despite the success in business, his track record of philanthropy actually sometimes does overtake that business empire. Hearing his name, one automatically associates with huge success. But what we may not know is how this journey was. Indeed, he was raised up in the sprawling Ngara area of Nairobi. Manu Chandaria, please tell us, what is your work ethic and what would you say has contributed to your success?
My message is purely, there has to be some goals in life to achieve. And for that, you go to work and work hard at it. And unless and until that goals are there, what you want to do, how far you want to go, you will not be able to manage it. And so my message to everybody is set your goals and work on it. And I'm sure that you will be able to get through and achieve. Because achievement is the struggle. But the setting of the goal is the determination of what you want to be. And this is what I think is the principle that I'd like to say, hey, come on, don't sit around and talk about all these issues. Set your goals, what you want to be in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time, and what you want to achieve. And unless and until you have got this kind of attitude, you will not be able to, you'll be there, but you will not be something which you call successful. There are many, many successful people. But unless you achieve what you're set for, then and then people will look at you and say, hey, that's the man I think I should follow.
Indeed, one of the quotes associated to you, and I have to read this, is 0 multiplied by 0 is always 0. tell us a little about this quote you always use.
Well, I always use it because I think that that's a simple multiplication. Is that zero? You want to do something, and you will change in your mind halfway and don't want to do anything, and then zero means remain zero. And so build to one is very difficult. But once you build to one, there has to be an ambition that you want to build to two. Because one by one is again always one. Until you reach to two, then you've got 2 by 2, which makes 4. Or you can put 2 plus 2, 4. You can then go 4 plus 4, 8. Or you can go 4 multiplied by 4, 16. There's a multiplicity, a possibility. That means your aims must grow with your achievements. That whatever you've been achieved, you want to, that's past. Let's not waste our time on the past. Let's move and say, this is what I want to achieve now. And I'm sure that we can.
Thank you, Manu. John Maxwell says that success is when I add value to myself, but significance is when I add value to others. So maybe you can tell us, what are some of the things you have done to add value to others, especially in the business life?
The basis was very simple. Success, there are many successful people. But success is not mere enough unless the success in turn into significance. Then and then, people will start looking at you and think about who you are and what you have been able to do. Now, to me, the start was very small, and we wanted to build it up. And to build up, you require very few important items. Number one, integrity. Number two, hard work. I'll put hard work first, integrity second. But without both of them, it is not a possibility. And once you have that attitude and interest in going for it, because most of the people leave it halfway, some 3/4 way, they never want to finish it. So determination of making sure that you're at it, and you're going to finish it, and you're going to create it. And understand until that's a possibility. Now, in my life, I thought that because I was in business, I started looking at what the business possibilities are. I started joining the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. After a few years, I became the vice chairman. I became the chairman. I created East African Business Council for East African community so that we can all have a bigger cake. And then I created KEPSA. Created KEPSA means I was the leader in making very sure that it happens. Now this all takes, it's business responsibility. It's not just like we call it social responsibility, corporate social responsibility. I name them as corporate business responsibility. You must be responsible enough to create an environment of business in the country. If you cannot, then it will not work. And so I asked every top man in the top of every organization to join. Wherever I am, I'd like to see that they join and we become a group which is strong and which has capacity to think beyond their own eyes, beyond their own nose. And this is the success of social, the corporate business responsibility. And for all these years, it takes a lot of work, a lot of hard work. Keep your mouth shut, keep your ears open. But if you want to create something, there is no other alternative. And I think what Mike said, that look at KEPSA today, after 14, 15 years, from 2003 onwards. Look at today, where it has gone. The question is that every organization needs that leadership of quality, leadership of determination, leadership which will deliver.
Manu Bai, I have a young Rotaractor on this call.
Yeah.
And she's just graduated, is on her first job. She's probably looking at you and wondering, when I walk around town, I see Nairobi Hospital, Chandaria Accident and Emergency Center, Gertrude, Chandaria Center, Kenyatta University, Chandaria Innovation Hub. What challenges could this man have faced? Did he face any? Does he have any challenges in his career?
Well, let me give you another example of a Chandaria Business Innovation Center at Kenyatta University. Yeah. They came up with the model of what we require ventilator. To think about Kenya and young university graduates thinking that I'd like to do it. That's not easy. Unless we give them an opportunity, space, possibility, and encouragement. And to me, I think that all these institutions that we have put the money into are for something which will create Chandaria School of Business. In Nairobi University, we've got Chandaria, the big theater there. The question is that how much are we prepared to push our children? Because we have been pushed. And we pushed ourselves also. And now, unless and until we push ourselves and tell our people also, come on, life is not that easy unless you make it. If you don't want to make it, yeah, you'll just survive. And when the God calls you, go away. But to do in between that 30, 40, 50 years of span to achieve, that means you require a hard determination, drive, continuous new ideas, new thinking, new thoughts, and giving back to the society. Because at the end of the day, we got everything from the society. We had nothing. So to me, a Rotary is one way of asking and helping to understand. Because when you become a Rotarian, you have no clue. You are happy, so the world is happy. No, it's not so.
Okay. Thank you, Manu. But I still will come back to you on a personal challenge that Manu, the person experienced. But I'll come back to you on that. Okay. Our next panelist, she is petite in size, but make no mistake, she is large in deeds and has many accolades to show for this. She has been described as Kenya's pioneer female entrepreneur, maybe because she's associated with the following attributes. She's audacious, resilient, persistent, and admirably determined. She has many firsts, but one first that I pick is that she ventured into business in her 20s. And she did it at a time when women, let alone African women, had opportunities in business. We've heard of the Evelyn College of Design, which is a pioneer design institution with over 40 years shaping the fashion and design industry. This petite powerhouse has also been instrumental in women's empowerment movement, not only in Kenya, but around the globe. Evelyn Mungai Eldon, kindly tell us how you define your journey in your career in the business.
Thank you very much, Sally. I was thinking of you were talking to somebody else, but not about me. But as we went along, then I realized it's actually me that you wanted me to say something. My journey in Rotary has been wonderful, and I think out of all the things that I've done, is the one I'm very most proud of, and proud of in so many ways, and mostly helping other people. And because I can say I've been successful, but if I have not made someone successful, or somebody who can evaluate their jobs and sort of say, this is me, they always, or most of the people, they sort of say, I want to be rich. So I have tended to sort of say I'm not rich, but I'm very rich in heart. And that brings me to Rotary. It's made me who I am. And looking at that, as I say, what a wonderful thing I did. And this gentleman here, you know, is the one who was actually instrumental in my joining Rotary. And he invited me and said, can you come and talk to us at Rotary? It was an amazing time because, you know, there we didn't have women, and we only had men. And I for some reason, I didn't hesitate. I said, I want to hear what these people talk about. So I went and I was given a topic, and I was not worried about the men because they were not scaring. You know, you go to some clubs now and people are scared and I sort of say, there are these oldies and they don't want us to say anything and we'll never learn anything. That's not the case now. I think it's changed tremendously, and I'm glad to be a member of the Rotary Club of Nairobi. And when I hear that we are going to be 90, I say, good, well done. And we'll be able to sort of say what we have done. And I look at my success in Rotary, and not on a personal level, but I look at the Shura Rotary home, and which we started about 12 years ago. And the kids there around the area, they had, you know, they have no parents. They were, you know, what can I say? They had, you know, they were lonely and a privilege. They didn't have food, and the only person who could go and see them is somebody really who believes that they will become someday. Now that was quite a while ago, and they did actually survive. I see some of them in jobs now, which makes me feel that I'm a mother and a grandmother. In fact, they call me granny, and which I think is a very nice thing for me to live with. We started a high school. There was no high school, and that was coming from Rotary and Rotary friends. We approached them, and they were able to give us what they could give us. And our Rotary Club also was very, very helpful. Let me use the word helpful to make it happen. So we got a high school, we got a primary school, and we got a clinic. And now people in the village, if there's a guest, they say, where did you go? He said, I went to Rotary Clinic, and that makes me feel very good because they put Rotary and then they put the clinic afterwards. It's that's my success. I don't call my success business. My business life is a different one. I like to think in terms of what I have done for mankind, and thinking that some years to come, when I can not work anymore, then I can go with and call them Shosho. They call me Shosho, which is grandmother. It is a wonderful place to be, and the kids to be. Like now, we've got one at different college and a scholarship, and we've got some other employed like in tribe. So we go and tell them our story, and then they help, and then those people are able to go for. Now, one I would like to say very much, and has been very helpful, is Manu Chandaria. We get kids who have nobody to help them. And I remember a girl who had triple A's. She came and told me, you know, the mother said, you know, that this one has got four A's, and she's working in a hairdressing salon. And I said to myself, then I'm not a Rotarian, I'm not a business person if I let this girl go. So I went to Manu, and I went to Suli, where they worked together. And when I told them the story, they didn't ask any questions. They said, tell her to bring all her papers. That girl is graduating this year. So those are the stories that makes me happy, not my stories about business.
Thank you. Thank you. Rich in heart and sharing with others. I want to quickly bring in Arun, but not before I challenge you, Evelyn. There's a quote attributed to you which says, you are counseling some women in business and you told them, own your fears, but rise above them. believe in your dreams, and get all the information and support you need to achieve them and to rise to the top. Maybe briefly, can you tell us what kind of fears did you face in your journey?
In business, in really is a very challenging situation. And like you said, you know, what did I do? How did I deal with my worries as to whether I be able to do what I was supposed to do? I remember Nelson bringing some ladies from Kampala, and they were all business people, and I had just come out of hospital, and Nelson, in his very Rotary minded, he brought them, and then I said, okay, I'm going to talk to them. And they went back and sort of say, we would like to come back to Kenya, and they attend a Rotary meeting and then know what to do. So those are the things that I do, and I like to do more. And this idea, really, I must thank Nelson, because it's a wonderful idea. We've been saying that now, what are we going to do now? Because the club, it needs to be revamped. And we just talk among themselves, but we don't do it. But now that we are doing, whoever is initiator, I think it was Nelson, I'll sort of say, well done, because we needed to, either we leave the club, or we make it well with all the past chairman and past AGs and DGs, because it would be a pity if Rotary was not there to help others and to be able to have leaders. And we got leaders like Arun, I've seen there. He's a very dynamic person. Arun, I almost called you young. Not, I didn't mean to call you, to call you anything.
I only celebrated my 75th birthday 5 days ago.
And you did not invite me, so we'll find the next Rotary lunch or dinner when we
was in Mombasa.
Evelyn, it's very kind of you for the compliments that I like that you share your successes with your panelists. It is not, we're not lost to the point that the person on your left, of course, is somebody you share a lot, business and Rotary and family successes. Since you have mentioned Arun, I think it's time now we bring in our next speaker, who is well known for his vocal and very effective. Yes, it's you I'm talking about. He sort of like turned back to see who I'm talking about. Yes, very vocal and very effective when you are chair of Kenya Association of Manufacturers. And as we know, this association is charged with uniting industrialists through a common voice for business, a role he played very effectively. A successful manufacturer in his own right, he was instrumental in getting KAM evolved into a dynamic, vibrant, and credible and respected business association. Arun, Devani, can you share your thoughts on success and significance?
Sally, since you kept me last.
Sorry, I think let me just repeat that. Sorry, I didn't realize my speaker. Did you hear me?
Yes, I heard you. All right. Sally, you kept me last, so maybe you want to hear a little longer, a little more story, more exciting things than what you have received from very, very prominent panelists. I must go back to where I come from. Imagine of Indian origin, born in Kenya, educated in England, and then again coming back to Kenya. Can you hear me, Sally? You can. So coming back to Kenya, making a career and getting involved in different things. I started my business for the benefit of a lot of other people. I broke away from the family business and I had 28,000 shillings in my pocket in 1971. That is the seed on which I grew. And just to give you an idea, I was in pharmaceutical manufacturing. Various exciting things happened to me. I grew my pharmaceutical business. And funny enough, always being a bit of an extrovert, I was exporting. And in 1977, we were exporting 50% of my production to Tanzania, some to Uganda, and rest to Kenya. And imagine, first challenge in my life when on Sabasaba Day, the borders between Kenya and Tanzania came to a grinding halt. You have the whole supply chain coming of raw materials. You had business orders from there, and you had few $1 million stuck over there, and you start by losing all that money. And then the next exciting thing that happened in Kenya, which people don't realize, is in 1982, we had attempted coup. And at that time, I had just started Sinresin, borrowed $12 to $13 million. It was converted at 7 shillings. Overnight, you had a beautiful Mercedes. I had one of the finest plant in this part of the world, and I had no raw materials. And then, of course, to repay the loan, the shilling became 13 shillings, 15 shillings. Eventually, I paid it 27 shillings. Right? Came out of that one. Then we converted some of our business into family business. And I tell you, it's not easy to run family business. It took a few years. They again segregated. So you again have, and really when people part in a family business, they want nothing but the cashable assets and so on. In 1982, I was doing very well. I was in England, and then the plant catches fire. One day I was a market leader. Next day you have a 0 market share. And so many other things. But what I learned very fast, and I'm coming down to the mentorship and significance and so on, is very early in my life, I realized, and this was with help of a businessman, very successful man, that I have to divide my life into 4 things. One was, yes, I had to concentrate 25% of my time totally dedicated to business. Because if I didn't have money, if I didn't have success, I would be no one. So that was one. Second thing I learned very quickly was 25% of the time, I must give it to my family. Now, in the younger days, it was an extended family. As the family grows, it becomes your own. And between Eli and myself, we gave a lot of time. And the success of all that one, and somebody asks you, what is your wealth? I have 3 daughters who went to the best British universities and the best American universities. 2 of them went to Cambridge, 2 of them went to Stanford for their MBAs and so on. So that really creative. And then also among our family members, extended family members, to look after them. 25% I decided I'm going to commit to the society. And this is where before joining Rotary, I was member of Roundtable, which gave me the insight of what services, what fundraising as well as fundraising is. And I think that was the seed of my making my presence felt at Rotary. And the 25% balance is for myself. I learned very quickly that I had to spend reasonable amount of my time educating myself. As I told you, I was a pharmacist, but I gradually moved towards economy and affairs of the country, but more towards the economy and so on. And different type of readings, my golf, earlier days I was playing squash, but those are the 4 things I divided my life in. And even as I speak to you, these are the 4 guiding lines that I have kept with me at any one time. Challenges, phenomenal. Very quickly I realized when I started, as I said, spending 25% of my time for the society, I said, yes, Rotary, I can do a very good job. But when Manu and others introduced me to the Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Association, I quickly realized, and I have again held on to it, is business is not in your factory or your shop. That is only a portion of it. You must organize very quickly And it's very difficult because you need very trustworthy, reliable people on whom you can build and so on. But you have to go outside your business for various things. And I realized very quickly in my career that whatever we can feed people, yes, 100 people, 200 people, we can make a hospital and so on. But if you can go back to the days when we had import license controls, we had, even Mike talked about computer. You had to have a permission and permit to have put a computer on, because the feeling was you might reduce the employment. This tremendous poverty was kept in the country by politicians and civil servants who didn't understand business. So I quickly realized, and this has been always been a theme that I have propelled in every time I had a meeting, is there are two sides of a country. One is the government and the civil servants who have to take care of you, me, and the next generation and the next generation. But on the other side, the balanced side, you need a revenue generating business community. And it is the business community which will reduce poverty in the country, which will force gender equalization and so on. And we have seen it. Now our country talks of budget of trillions of shillings, but you have to go back when even 25 billion was a lot of money. In 2007, the total revenue collected by KRA was 350 billion. So we have come up 10 ways in terms of 10 times in terms of revenue collection. So my energy was spent in what can we do, some change at the government level, in the policy level, which would benefit the whole population. And whether you talk about the port, whether you talk about the SGR, Manu and I were very keenly involved in it, and so on, whether it was various restriction, etc. And then, of course, I also realized that Kenyan market, on its own, is very small for business. Kenyans of all the neighboring countries are the most enterprising, more business-minded, more hardworking, and on the whole, far more ethics. So this is where we worked hard to revive East African community. And once it was revived, we also were propelling and pushing the government to add on different countries. So now we have South Sudan, we are looking at Somalia. So we started with 3, but now we are 6 already, we are going to be 7. Congo, we have been pursuing them. They want to be a member of the community, but you require certain balancing in that country, freedom and so on, which will come eventually. So this is what I pride myself in, that whatever we have worked on does not perhaps go directly as a food or to individuals, but it raises the standard of the nation. And that's where I have concentrated.
Thank you. Thank you, Manu. I don't know, am I audible? My mic? Nelson, am I audible? Okay. Thank you. I think would like to, you've brought great insights, and thank you for candidly sharing your challenges. When we look at successful people, we don't associate them with disaster or problems, but thank you for sharing that. Since we want to make this session interactive, I'll be handing over to Nelson shortly to go through the Q&A, but not before Manu shares that one challenge that Manu faced in his career. Manu Chandaria?
You want me to talk about my career?
No, give us, at least you must have faced one challenge. It can't all have been rosy. Did you experience any challenge?
Not one challenge. The way
give us one.
Not one. I think that challenges are a part of life. If you don't have the challenge, then it's too easy to go. And it's not happening. It's happening probably for 1% or maybe 0.5% of the world, but it's not happening otherwise. And you look for challenges. Not only that challenges come to you, you look for challenges. And if you don't look for challenges and go for it, after it, you can never make it. And so to me, it's very interesting to find that challenges is a part of life. It's not something which is, you just put your two hands on your head and say, wow, what am I going to do? That's when the real work starts. And I think that we have gone through ups and downs in our life, 67, 68 years of life. Surely, there are many, many challenges. And to identify which challenge, it's very difficult because challenges are a part of my life and has been always a part of my life. And to find solution is where the growth and what Mr. Manu Chandaria is all about.
Thank you. As Nelson takes over, I'd like each of you, whether you're going to respond to it or whether you're going to write it on a chat as a response, I'd like each of you to tell us if you were to change something in your life, in your career or business journey, what would that one thing be? If it's not addressed in the Q&A, please type it in. If we have a few minutes, we'll come back to that. Over to you, Nelson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Salome. Very much well handled. There are about a few questions which have been raised. And the first one probably will go to Arun. One of the things we talk about, the participants are talking about what we call burnout. You have a very busy life. How have you balanced? I know you mentioned about the 4 areas. How did you ensure you are able to balance off the 4 areas of your life without necessarily burning out, being a very business person? Then Mr. Mike Eldon, your question would be, I've seen a question basically directed to you about self-actualization. Is there a level of self-actualization whereby you say, I am actually actualized, and this is where I have always wanted to be. I'm on top of my game. And how are the markers for you? Then I'll take 2 more questions after that. Maybe you could go first, Arun.
Thank you, Nelson. It's a very interesting question. And there are 3 answers that I would like to give you. First one is the biggest, the way you can prevent burnout is to have peace at home and the domestic life, which does not give you tension, which you take it to the business. And I was very lucky in Ila. And then, of course, she in turn, she gave up her career. We realized very quickly in our married life that you had to look after children and guide them. She only had a year to go before she would have been an SEA accountant in England, but she decided she'll stand by me. This is an old fashion, if you like to call it. So I had a lot of peace at home. Second thing that I would like to say is, in my business, it wasn't easy, but you tried to employ 2 or 3 trustworthy employees. The biggest problem and challenge that I have come across in business, my business and other businesses that I've seen, is unfortunately what we see in public about corruption and frauds and so on. It's a little bit like COVID virus. It spreads into business, into individuals who work for you, etc. So you have to find somebody who is a COVID resistant, who's, even if your growth is slow, but it's very important when you are spending your time outside your office, whether it is on business or whether it is for social work or some of the business organization I got involved in, that you had people who were honest and they were digging holes when you were doing something else.
All right.
The third thing I did in my life, and this is even before you would say I had money, we made sure we had 3 family holidays a year. Maybe it would be only 1 week going around to Nevasha, but just spending time with children, wife, maybe 1 or 2 friends, or going to Mombasa and so on. Making sure you had breaks in between. That acts as an energizer. Very often you get stressed when you don't give it a break. And this is why in my culture, they teach you things like meditation and yoga. It's not anything else, but it's to give you a break from your routine so that you break it, your mind comes to a grinding halt, and then it starts working again. And that has prevented me. And that's why perhaps I'm still 75 and I don't have a heart problem, diabetes problem. It's very serious because a lot of executives start having clotting of the arteries and diabetes. The only problem I have is weight problem, but that's because I've always enjoyed my food, but in a balanced way. Yeah. But it's very important if you become an executive to have some discipline on that side.
Thank you, Arun. Quite a great perspective, and you're quite wealthy in your experiences. I think we need to have you more. Mike, Eldon.
Thank you. And self-actualization. Do you know, the time I've been most self-actualized in my life, I think, has been these last 15 years during my second curve. And the reason is because it has been a time where I've been able to go beyond self-actualizing to actualizing others. And I self-actualize through actualizing others. Mm-hmm. And just this week, for instance, from Monday to Wednesday, I had a fascinating 3-day workshop with the Vision 2030 Delivery Secretariat, helping them relaunch themselves. They've got a new CEO, a new chair of the board, Jane Karugu. And so to help them increase their circle of influence as a strategic body in Kenya has been very self-actualizing because I was helping them. Today and tomorrow I'm with Toyota Kenya, helping them revamp their culture. So I'm just having the time of my life as an age mate to Arun.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Maybe to Evelyn, you've been very instrumental in women leadership and in women in business. Maybe you could give us a bit of perspectives of how the journey has been, because I think you have been the most successful woman in leadership. Even relating to the book you recently wrote, from glass ceilings to open skies. You could give us perspectives about a woman in both leadership, politics, and in business, how you manage to break the ceiling and just into the open sky for other women.
Thank you very much, Nathan. It's a big question for me to think in terms of all the things that I have done. But I'm proud when I look back and see what I have been able to do. And not only locally, but also overseas. And I see that everything is a learning and learning. You get learning when you are interested in learning, instead of just saying, I'm going to read newspapers. You have to get books. And this husband of mine, his library is like, I can't tell you that, because he likes to read. So now he made me now become like him, but I can never cut up. As far as this is concerned, in terms of my journey started when I was very young, but did not think I was young at that particular time. I thought I was just normal, and that's when I was running what do you call it? Recruitment club, and it was very successful. And after some time, then of course I started leaving college, which is 45 years old. It's not been easy. Business is never easy, but you've got to have comfort in your mind and sort of say, I'll do it and do it successfully. It's a question of women also who want to start their own businesses. It's a question of, what do you call it now? Seeing them and talking with them and then mentoring them. I get a lot of that in mentoring, and it's been very successful when I hear somebody that I mentored that they are really doing very well. And Kenyans are good. They are good in the sense that once you mentor them, they bring the feedback. You don't want to get anything for them, but really a feedback and to be told, you've done very well, now we go to the next step. Because you don't drop the people you have mentored. We continue with the journey, and the journey has been wonderful. And I am at the point in my life where I would like to mentor more and more, not only the young ones, but also the older ones who really think that the sky has fallen, because they said they are retiring. It is their second retirement. I think might call the second retirement.
Second curve.
Second curve. And then I continue like that until I am able to really be not to be able to do anything. Right now, I feel I'm in my prime. I'm not old yet, I like to say, but I would like to bring women into the business and the professions, and for them to be celebrated. We've had celebrations. I went to a celebration of my life in India, no, in Dubai. And then you met those people that you have really shown that it can be done. All the world will accept you, and then you mentor others, and then of course wealth creation. Also, that's something I listen to very, very carefully. It's not a question of just give me money and I'll be all right. No, mentor them, and then they get started, and then they come to you, and you have to be receptive, because they rely on you. And then once they rely on you, then you know you are traveling the same journey. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. As a woman, we celebrate you, Madam Evelyn Mungai. I think when the books are written, your name will appear in every page for what you've done for this country. Thank you very much. Dr. Manu, there are so many questions targeting you. I think you're in very high demand. Number one is about how have you ensured you don't create a dependency attitude or what we call an entitlement with your giving and your philanthropy. And then secondly, how have you separated your business and the giving or the work you've done in society? And then thirdly, beyond what we know, what do we want to remember Manu for? What is that one thing? Those are three questions, but then Mike, you have one more question about how to create a culture of corporate business responsibility. How do we create that culture? That's for Mike. So, but Manu, Dr. Manu, please go first. Yes. Somebody unmute.
I'm 1 year older than the Rotary Club of Nairobi. So, what is the first question you wanted to ask me?
The culture of dependency. How do you make sure that that attitude does not grow within the people you support?
Well, the point is that, to me, everything is still to be done. What we have achieved is just halfway journey. And unless and until you keep yourself, then no, you need some more to be achieved. You'll never do it. That means you must always put yourself on a spring and continue to extend as much as you can. And to me, have I achieved everything? No. Do I want to achieve something more? Yes. That spirit, the question is, that spirit is most important part. All right, the second one you said about the giving.
Yes.
Giving was very interesting that it's a long story, but to make it very short, when we were very small and we didn't have enough money, and we were very small in Mombasa, one plant, 40 people, and 36 people at home. You know, it was just, and here I have a postgraduate degree in engineering. My brother a food technology from Berkeley, and we thought that what are we doing? Why are we serving the family now? Why don't we just get out ourselves and work ourselves and do something for ourselves? And I'm sure that we'll be able to do much better. But then, you know, I grew up during the time of Gandhi and Gandhi's movement of Quit India. And to me, a sacrifice, and I always believed that my parents sacrificed their life and what we are today. And how can we just drop them and say, go away? So at that time, immediately after a couple of years, we had about 200 people working. We went, all our brothers, we went over to our parents and said, hey, how about setting up Chandaria Foundation? He laughed at me, he looked at me, and then said, what are you looking? He said, you know, you live too long in the United States. We are not Rockefeller. We are not Ford. I said, hey, I lived only 3.5 years in the United States. Why are you telling me all this? He said, no, nothing, get going to work. There's a big hole over here, fill it up first. After 5 years, when we had about 400 or 500 people working with us, he came back and said, here's 10% of our company. Set up Chandaria Foundation. The purpose was purely that you must be able to consider you have a responsibility in the country that you live in. You might be doing very little, but unless and until you got that attitude in your head, in your mind, you will not be able to do it. And so it makes you feel more and more possibility that how much more can I do? Have I done enough? The answer is no, I don't did enough. How much more can I do? You can do as much as you can, even more than you can. And I think there is always a bit necessity that we keep on pushing people. And can we push people? No. People themselves must push themselves. That's it. And that's what we should be pushing around in Kenya. Or anything, third thing?
Well, one more question before I go to Mike. So somebody is asking, Florence, what keeps you awake at night now that you need to achieve? And then secondly, the value, your value system, you are a very ethical man and a man of virtue. How did that come about? Maybe we'll come to you. Maybe first Mike, answer your question, then we come back to Manu, then I go to Arun.
Okay, Nelson, culture of corporate business responsibility. To me, it actually starts with individual business responsibility. And it's all to do with who the founder was or is, who the other family members were or are, who the other board members are, and who the CEO is. It is only if the individuals at the top have a responsible sense that then the corporate does. It is their values that then cascade to others. And whether they have Rotarian four-way test values or whether they have values of selfishness, of short-term sub-optimization, of over-focus on dividends for shareholders, or what? A year ago, Michael Hopkins and I and one other, we founded this Institute for Responsible Leadership. And Michael, who's on this call, has taught me so much about this whole field. He spoke at one of our Rotary lunches about it a few weeks before he was inducted as one of our newest members. But Michael always describes this responsibility, this corporate social responsibility, as being fair to all key stakeholders, which is an increasing corporate trend. We see it most recently in this full-page ads from James Mwangi, but you can really tell who the ethical ones, who the responsible ones are. I sometimes start as a consultant with organizations that subsequently ask me to become a director. And I have assessed by then whether their values are compatible with mine. And where I've agreed to become a director, like at Davis and Shirtliff and Occidental Insurance, where I am now, or KCA University until recently, it's because I can be comfortable and relaxed having conversations with like-minded people who share the sort of values that we Rotarians have. Other organizations that have asked me where I think my values are not compatible, I say, please let me carry on just being a consultant.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Manu, I come back to you on the two questions. What keeps you awake at night? You have achieved so much, but there's that one thing. And then secondly, about your value system. You are a very honest and a man of virtue. Where did you get that fabric from? Someone unmute, Dr. Chandaria, President Ritesh, unmute.
I'm sorry. Mute, yeah. Right, fine. I think something comes from, most of them, I think the values come from the family, the way they treated us, they looked after us, etc. But I think that the values are something today you can pick it up. Unless and until you've got interest in doing something, then and then you can manage, then you can do something. But if you are not, if you just have happy with yourself, then I don't think that you can do very much. My personal feeling is that I would like to see that every young people today, let's take for example Kenya. There are 4 million youth facing streets. And now today we've heard that there are more than 1.4 million out of job. Now, nobody stops you to plant a tree. Does anybody stop you? No. Does anybody stop you to clean up? Go and sweep a street? Nobody stops you. But that attitude is not there. This is my country. I want Kenya to prosper. Now, by just wishing Kenya to prosper, it doesn't prosper. You got to work at it. And to my way of looking at it, that unless you're honest, number one, your set of integrity, values that you give your word, that you keep it, and you work for it. It's not easy to not to work for it. Nothing comes without working hard at it. And nights that you work, even today, I don't go to sleep until 11:30. And I ask myself, what do I do? And I look at the paper, look at the paper that's lying on my table. The question is that there is no limit of what you can do. And I think that what we really require and what Rotary will be pushing around is just not to be a committee member, but incite the guys and say, hey, come on, man, what can we do together? And that's the principle that I've used in my life, right from 40 people to 40,000 people worldwide. It's only possible because there is always a push. What you say, Sukumatu Arambe.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you very much. Arun, there's someone asking about the way forward for the health sector. I know you play a lot in that space. So post-COVID, what's the way forward? Then for Mike, how do we then rebuild the Kenya we want, value-wise? And what are your closing thoughts on that? And then I think there's so many other questions. I may not be able to take all of them because you only have about 8 more minutes before I give to our young leader, Ruth Kihoro, to give a perspective as we wind up. So over to you, Arun.
Nelson, I'm going to be honest. It's a subject you contemplate every time you open a newspaper and see the extent of the rot in the institution, I don't have the answer. I don't want to mislead you. Yes, we have to find a solution, but I would be wrong to give you any guideline. Like Manu said, like other people said, it all starts from the top, and then that value has to be pushed down as far as you can. Unfortunately, when you look at the size of the Ministry of Health and the number of people working there and the way they're spread over the country, honestly, I would be the wrong person even to start looking at that problem. Nelson, my battery is going to run out. I'm going to run downstairs and get the charger. But in the meantime, I'll ask other question to Mike and others.
Okay, thank you, Arun. Thank you, Arun. So back to Mike.
I just have got I just had to leave to get my charger. So can you please repeat the question for me? Is it Josephine's about peace in communities?
The bigger question was, we have a leadership crisis at the company, individual, and the country level. So what is that one or two things we need to do to build back the fabric of the nation as individuals first, as Rotarians, as businesses?
Right now, I'm spending a lot of time working with the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. And their job is to do that. And not least within it is an area that I've been passionate about for many years and very active in, which is trying to bring the national values alive. No one pays attention to the 17 or so national values in the Constitution. It's a very boring, dull list. But there are ways of doing that, just like I and my colleagues do at the organizational level. And what, as we were doing with the Vision 2030 people just earlier this week. So I'm working with quite a number of people to see how we can do some work at the community level, both bottom up from grassroots leaders around the country, in the counties, in the urban slums, in the refugee camps everywhere, to become a conscious of the national values, but not just be aware of them, but have them influence attitudes and ultimately behavior. But it's awfully hard when we have such negative role models among our politicians. And this is one of the big challenges of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, to tame the unconvertible, and knowing also that the media loves all the noise and the conflict and the confrontation that we have been seeing as we are building up to the next election. It's a particularly challenging time, and the work we're doing with NCIC is to see what we can do in collaboration with people like KEPSA and others to have a build-up to a peaceful 2022 election. The whole idea of Vision 2030 was to keep the economy going across electoral cycles. But let me just leave it there. It's a long subject.
Now, I will not be able to take all the questions, but I will want to do a round of closing remarks. I'll give you each a minute, starting with Arun, then I will go to Evelyn, then I will go to Dr. Manu, and then Mike. So over to you, Arun, some closing remarks in the whole of our conversation today.
Thank you, Nelson. As you have seen, my focus is a little bit more towards people who are thinking of being their own entrepreneurs and so on. So what I did separately was to make a list of few things that would act as a guideline to young people. And one of the first thing I wrote down over here is, if you go into business, please concentrate on one business. Yes, you will come across all the challenges, and you'll, in time to come, you get better and better at it. Because one of the weaknesses I have noticed among the young people over here is they like to dabble into so many things. The temptation is there. Maybe they've heard their friends are doing well, their friends have made big money, whether it's the government contract, etc. But the simple thing is concentrate on one, focus what you have some knowledge about. Second point I made was, don't say yes to any project unless you understand it. Doesn't matter if I'm the consultant, I know everything about it, and I tell you it's the best project that you can go into it. Please be cautious. Unless you understand it, don't say yes. Third thing I have said is be wary of borrowing money. The tendency is, because banks, if you do little well, they will be flocking around you and asking you to borrow more money. Please, this is the big mistake if you look around, a lot of people make, because you don't know when the circumstances are going to change. And I have noticed 2 years ago, 18 months ago, I had a friend who was flush with money and he invested in 2 hotels. I'm talking of $1 billion shilling. Would you like to see his face today with no occupancy, 7 months, 8 months of zero customers coming in? So please, important thing is don't borrow money. In Kenya, our finance cost is phenomenal, 12, 13%, 14%, while in Europe and America, where it's 2.5%, 3% borrowing rate, it's not always easy to compete with them if you have to continue borrowing. I have made quite a few other lists, but I thought these few points would be useful to your young members. Thank you.
Thank you. We will revisit the rest of the list in our next chat. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mike. Oh.
My closing theme is age is but a number. And as I was looking back over my life, I saw that, for instance, at the age of 27, I was running IT strategy workshops for top CEOs in the UK and permanent secretaries. And I wasn't conscious of my age then. At quite a young age, I became a general manager here of a reasonable sized company at 33, my first time in Africa. And now age is but a number, as I've reached my 3/4 of a century, still doing things as though I'm maybe some completely different age. But particularly for the young ones, don't assume that the wisdom only comes with age. There's inverse mentoring, there's contribution on innovation, not least in this digital era. So many people can make major contributions, can be of great significance at any age, including very young ages.
Thank you, Mike. Oh, over to you, Evelyn. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. Is it on?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nelson. Now you have really broken the glass ceiling as far as men are concerned. Well done, well done. And these are kind of things that I think we would really like to have for, every time, because we only meet at the grand, let me call it Grand Regency, but it isn't now. Because we are getting to understand each other and to understand what actually people would like about Rotary. Because Rotary had gone down, and now it's gone down because of the situation we are getting in the country. Coronavirus, I don't pronounce it well. So I think it is a way of getting together, and I like that. Instead of sort of saying I'm going to a foreign country and giving a speech, there is so much here in Kenya. And that comes to my comment. Public communications, I think that's very important. So we communicated with each other, whether it's in Rotary, whether in Lions, or anything that we are doing. And I speak that from experience. I have been a speaker very many times, and that's why you mentioned about the book that I wrote. And I hope the ladies that who are there, they'll go and look for the book or call me. It's public communication. That's very important. Then we understand each other more. I've spoken in Congress in Capitol Hill that quite a few years ago, And therefore, you meet people from all sides. We have about 20 from Africa, and then you understand each other, and then you understand, like, for instance, Bush, the senior Bush, was our host, and I'll never forget the experience that was there. South Africa, we met top-class women who have done wonderful work, and also that you learn something from them. So I think it's a question of open up and digest as much as you can. I could go on and on, but I won't. I've got in Malaysia. That's what World Economic Forum. I'm the only one from Africa, and
Islamic Economic Forum.
Islamic from Africa, and I like that, because you see, I'm representing my country, and people ask, how come you are doing something to do Islam? I say it's not Islam, is a bridge that you are crossing so that we become one thing. We were from Asia, from Africa, from Europe. So now people are changing their minds, and eventually maybe there will be not this, you are their tribe, that nationality. So I'll just say you've done a very wonderful thing, and I hope it will continue. Like, for instance, what we're having now, we could have said, no, we can't because of CD19. But now, because we are innovative, thank you to you, we are able to organize something which is wonderful, like having this forum, without having to leave our houses. And I think you're getting a lot of people commenting on that, and we comment, Mike and I comment and sort of say, well done, well done, well done. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Evelyn and Mike. Thank you very much for agreeing to be on this panel. Dr. Manu, your closing remarks, please. You can unmute your...
Let's make every Kenyan a real Kenyan. I don't think we are still, every Kenyan is a Kenyan. They think that we are from Kenya. I think that the commitment towards the country and the national feeling that we should have, that anything that goes wrong, it's a loss of all of us. Not loss of some people, loss of all of us. And I think that unless that principally the nationalistic feeling, the patronage of that our own country, feeling this is my country, I think we can go miles. But the way we are going today, it's not yet, we are not ready. And the younger people are so fed up with what we are doing and what we have been able to project for them. And I think, to me, unless and until we have that basic attitude, this is my country, I need to put in to make it happen. Nobody is going to do it for you. You go to do it and do it for yourself. And to me, there are all the possibilities. At least for me, it's a few years left. But for so many of you who are young, there is so much that we can do. And if I look for myself, what I've been able to build and do, my God, it can be done. Where everybody could be Manu Chandaria. Why not? And we want to make them feel, yes, this is the man did it, let's do it. And they can do it.
Thank you, Dr. Manu. I think we need a piece of your blood. You're very patriotic in what you say, do, and it is so commendable. And thank you so much. This country owes you so much. And we thank God. Long life. We can't wait to see what God has in store for you. There's no better way to summarize this session before I hand over to my president than to give one of our young mentees, Ruth Kihoro, who leads one of our clubs, is the incoming president for the Rotary Club of Nairobi Central. Ruth Kihoro will give a closing remark and a vote of honor, just to give a rejoinder of what she has heard from these wonderful men and women. Thank you. Thank you. Over to you, Ruth. and then over to the President.
Thank you to both of you, Nelson, and to the lady, my director lady.
Dr. Salome.
Salome, yeah. She's my trustee with Estare Girls Center.
Oh,
Yes, it is.
Wow. Yeah. Ruth, over to you.
Thank you, Ritesh and Nelson, for this opportunity. Let me just start by saying I am amazed at how humble our panelists are. I think in my generation, Generation Z, we celebrate everything and we don't let people rest until they know what we have done. But it is amazing to see that our panelists have achieved so much and are so humble. It just blew my mind. That was the first thing I noticed. Other things I would like to say is their principles are very simple, but they work. For example, Dr. Manu said about setting your goals. This is something we hear over and over again, but it is good to have these powerful speakers, these past presidents, emphasize this simple. I learned about Eldon's law, which I think should apply to everything, especially in Kenya. And also the value of multiplicity of our efforts. That is very important, that if we don't move, we shall remain where we are. And we must always change our goals as we continue to achieve more. Arun, one thing I loved that he said is how he divides his time between business, family, society, and himself. I think it is very important to have that balance, especially in this age. There's a lot of disruption. There's so many things happening, and it is important to try and give time to everything, to things that are important to us. And then also from Evelyn, I am so sad I have never met you in person. You are an amazing, amazing woman. I think once Corona is over, please come for a Rotary Club of Nairobi meeting and I meet you. You are amazing. And it is good to see that there are women who are empowering other women. It is something we think should be in more people, but it isn't. And it is good to see that we have one of the pioneers with us. I'm very honored to meet you online. And then just to wrap up, I'd say let us have more sessions like this, Rotary and Nelson. This is very amazing. And one thing I love about being in Rotary, the Rotary family since Interact, is that I get to learn these things from people who have been there before me. So that even when I was transitioning from campus to my first job, I remember complaining to Dr. Sally about how my boss is. And then, having someone who has been there and advising you on how you should do it instead of you learning by yourself is very important. Having people like Mike Eldon who reinvented themselves at age 60. It's very good to hear these different stories, these different perspectives, and I am so honored to be part of this. Thank you, Ritesh and Nelson.
Thank you. Over to you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much indeed, our Vocational Service Director, Ritesh Nelson, for this exceptional meeting today. Thank you to the panelists, past presidents, Dr. Manu Chandaria, Mike Eldon, Evelyn Mungai, Arun, Devani, and to our wonderful Dr. Sally Gitoho, Dr. Salome, and Rotary Nelson. You did an exceptional job. And I also wish to commend your team, the Vocational Services Committee team. I see Dr. Beatrice is also with us here today. Wonderful, wonderful meeting. Thank you for sharing to the panelists. I would like to say thank you for sharing glimpses of your life journey. Importantly, you spoke about many aspects. You spoke about business, family, and also recreation. So you talked about a wholesome life, a successful life. I learned about how to have a healthy lifestyle, reinvention, how to make sure everyone has a drive and a passion. But most importantly, something which was recurring in what you were saying is for us to have the responsibility towards our country, towards the country we live in and the people around us. You have encouraged us to seek within, to motivate ourselves to be the best version of ourselves on a continuous and ongoing basis. So thank you so much for these wonderful words of wisdom. And Rotarian Nelson, if you'll kindly allow me, can I please request our district governor nominee, Rotarian Azeb Asrat, to kindly say some words? DGN.
Yeah, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm really in awe. You know, I say thank you to our senior Rotarians for coming on board and sharing their experience. I must say that all I have heard is extraordinary. For me, you know, this is the kind of, you know, tradition that we should have, listening to our seniors, bringing them on board to give us some guidance and some learning as well from it. So I am really excited and I'm glad that I didn't miss it. Thank you, President Ritesh, for inviting me, and Dr. Salome for the moderation. It was excellent as usual. And Nelson for your wrap up, and you know, the question and answer session was great, really. And I'm really excited, and I hope you'll come on board again, Evelyn, you know, to talk more about women empowerment. You know, that is, I think, something that I would like to hear as well from the Kenya experience. Thank you so much. Thank you. That was very nice.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Nelson. Thank you, Sally. Thank you for giving us opportunity to share our experience. Thank you.
Thank you, all panelists. You are wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, President Ritesh.
Thank you, and have a good night all. God bless
Thank
you.
you. Beautiful
Bless
session.
you.
Thank you.
All right.
Rotarian Nelson, that was exceptional. Dr.
Oh,
Sally, wonderful.
Absolutely. Well done, sir.
Thank you, Salome.
Yes.
And a fan moderator. Very, very effective. Well done. They should give you the US presidential election.
Take over from Dr. Trump.
No one can manage that one.
Oh no, don't call him doctor.